Hi, I'm Natalie, and today we're going to sew up the Hendrix bag. This is how she is. Isn't she cute? There are lots of features to this, including slip-in pockets on the front and back, a magnetic snap closure, and I riveted on the front flap to make it a little bit easier. As always, I'm using a domestic machine to make these SVC bags. Now, one thing I want to bring your attention to is we do have two versions of this video, and the easier version leaves off the pockets in case you're worried about layers on your domestic machine. So you can always do that. It's the same construction. You just leave off those slip-in pockets front and back. Now, as always, get all your tools ready, such as a Teflon foot, your mallet, your Microtex needle 8012, and your Gutermann thread, Sew All thread, or whatever you're using. If you're on an industrial, you might be using Tex 70 thread. We did include the acrylic template for our SVC current members. If you don't have this and you want it, it is up for sale on the website. It'll just make the construction of the strap simpler, easier. And one other thing with this, because I made two straps I can show you, there will be some raw edging. So if you have edge coat, this is your chance to use it, and it's not a big deal because the strap, you could always make 2 or 3 and use your best one. I just ordered some edge coat, so I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to apply it. If the edges bother you, if they don't, then don't even worry about it. You don't have to spend more money on paint. I have, in the past, done Sharpie. You can kind of see it here, see that light blue color? So I did a little bit of Sharpie here just to show you the difference. You might see the white, or you can Sharpie it in with any old color you want. This vinyl has tons of colors. But it just gives those edges a nice finished look, and it seals them. It's almost like a glue. So I would say do it. Do it on this one. Try it out. And I'll have a tutorial up soon for you. I think that's it, right, Rob? All right, let's get into it. All right, so for the newer sewist, I'm going to show you how I'm tiling the Hendrix Bag pattern pieces, and then I'm going to cut out the materials. So if you don't need this part, it's perfectly fine to go to the next chapter. But let's head overhead. Let's go overhead. And right here on the very first sheet, I show you how to tile. Sorry, I'm having trouble with words today. It's 4 across. So what I usually do is I put the first sheet down, and then I cut this left margin off sheets 2, 3, and 4. And then I'll do the same for the bottom, and then also cut the top off the bottom layer. Again, I'm using my paper cutter, my rotary cutter, because it's faster. And then I'm going to match these diamonds as best I can right here. And I'll put one piece of tape down. And this is just a start. So that's page 2. Let me move this out of the way here. This is page 3. Again, matching those diamonds. It's not like neurosurgery or anything. You don't have to be microscopically accurate, but you do want to line things up as best you can. Get it as best you can. This one, it looks like I need that other diamond piece is hidden, so I'll try to move that. Okay, for the bottom row, here's page 5. I'm going to cut down the left side for pages 6, 7, and 8. And then for all of them, we're going to cut off that top edge so that we can match it with the triangles up top. Make sure your paper is stacked accurately. I turn it around so I can use the ruler in my left hand, cutter in my right hand, and then all at one time I'm going to add this sheet back on top, and we're going to cut off that top border. Oop, let me make sure I don't move anything. All right, here's page 5. I'm going to bring my tape down. See, matching that guy. Page page 6. See these numbers that are faded out? That's how you know what sheet you're on. And see, I'm matching this top edge. These are lined up. I'm gonna put a piece of tape here and then a small piece of tape up here in the corners. You don't have to use gobs of tape or anything. This is page 7. And the most important thing is to line up this part of the strap here. I'll do one there, I'll do one up here, and the last page. Right, so this flap, the lines here and here, here and here are lined up. And the corners again. Okay. Now I can cut out my pattern pieces. And I really tried not to have things overlapping so that you didn't feel panicked. Remember this, when we cut our fabrics out, this one is cut on the fold. That's really important. This one we end up cutting in half. So we only need one. Let's see. I do want you, if you printed out the PDF, to measure this box. Print at 100%. Do not fit to page or scale. That's really important. And then also keep your file on your computer because we do not store your patterns for you. We don't have enough space for that. So we depend that you store it on your computer. I just created a folder after Ramel taught me this. I created 2 folders. One says purchased patterns, and then one says purchased bag patterns. And so I know where to go if I'm looking for a garment versus a bag pattern that I've purchased from other designers. And it just makes it easier. So that's why I put make a folder, SHH sewing patterns, so you can find your stuff easily on your computer later. All right, let's get cutting these shapes out. All right, let's cut out our materials. We're going to be using SBC vinyl and Sew HungryHippie water resistant canvas. You can also use fabric canvas if you prefer, or quilting cotton for the whole thing, but you'll need to interface if you're using quilting cotton or materials that don't have much body. If you're using the same materials as me, this entire bag has 0 interfacing. That's awesome. That speeds it up, right? Okay, so first up, let's cut out the vinyl. Now on your pattern sheet, in that chart on the very first page, other than the cover sheet, it tells you how many you need of each piece. So as you're cutting them, you can always just tick it off once it's cut. let's go overhead. This really doesn't have a direction, it's non-directional, but if you want to fussy cut anything, meaning like if you want this centered, then take care to cut it out that way now. Usually I don't do that the first time through a bag, but let's give it a shot. And this is not my first time through this bag, but it's my first time with this vinyl. I made it with the skull vinyl earlier in the week. All right, I've got my other cutter, and what I'm gonna do is help myself by cutting it down. This is the front flap, so it's the part that is seen most often when you're holding the bag. That's why I'm gonna cut this first. I think I've got that's pretty well centered. Let me see. Yeah, right down the center of that design there. All right, there's my front flap. I still need to cut a water-resistant canvas with this, but I'm gonna cut all of my vinyl first. Let's see if I can use this. Oh, it's a little bit too skinny. All right, but I've got this, so I'm gonna cut my D-ring attachment piece. And then I'm gonna grab my clips. And clip it in place. Now let's do the side. We need 2 of these side panels. And I will not worry about fussy cutting these. There's one. All right, now we're gonna fast forward again, and I will cut out all the WRC pieces. I'm gonna leave it folded so that I'm cutting 2 at a time. Now, if you want to do slip-in pockets for your lining, you can cut them out. You'll have plenty of fabric to do so. I don't want that on my bag, so I'm not going to do that. You don't have to get too nitpicky here because we can always trim these up after we sew the exterior and lining pocket pieces together. So just get it done as much as you can right now and worry about the nitpicking later. All right, let's cut our flap. Again, this one I can trim after I have it sewn together as well. Just gonna get it closer. Take a minute to clean up your space. Cutting and prepping takes so long for me, but it's worth it to have everything labeled, set out, and your space cleaned up. And then just review that you've got all your things cut out. We will need some hardware, 3/4 inch hardware, 2 D-rings, 2 swivels. I'm gonna be using 4 rivets for the strap alone. And then we're gonna see if I want to rivet on the flap or whether I'll sew it on. So that is your choice. I may end up using an additional 3 or 4 rivets to do the flap. Sometimes, depending on the materials you're using, you have to adjust how you attach things in the moment. And it kind of depends on your mood, the materials, and your machine. All right? Okay, so do you have double-sided sticky tape? I do. We're gonna be using that today, like in a lot of my tutorials. I'm just checking off that I have cut everything out. Yep. All right, let's go to the next page. So this is technically step 1 for the construction of the bag. On the designated front exterior slip-in pocket. So what that means is just decide that, let's say, this one or this one, which one is going to be the front, which one is going to be the back. And then let's put F and B on the wrong side of those pieces. I think I'm going to do, I think this one will be my front. So just so I remember, I'm going to put F on there and B over here. And the reason this matters is because we have to do our magnetic snap on one of them and not the other. Okay, so let me move these out of the way. We're going to measure and mark the center for placement of one side of the magnetic snap. Now you can do this whichever way you want. I think what I'm going to do is my Japanese punch tool again, and I'm going to go right in the center. And at least that gives me a marking of where I want to be in the center of my prongs. So here's my snap. And it can be whichever one you want it to be. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. And I'm going to, just like I've shown you in other tutorials, I mark where my prongs are going to go. Now, I don't think that will go all the way through. So I need my scalpel. And remember, for this part, you don't want to make a huge slit. It's a tiny little slit here. And then I'll put one piece through. There it is. Now, I like to do a little scrap piece of foam here. You can use anything. You could use extra vinyl. You could use anything. It doesn't matter. Batting, whatever you have sitting around. And it's just so your prongs have something to grip. There we are. Put on the gate. And then press those back. Oh, my thumbs are so sore. Okay. And that's placed. All right. This is now for sure the front of the bag. Step 2, we're going to place one of the linings right sides together with the exterior. And we're just going to sew along that top edge, only. But this wants to be a little slick. So let's make sure we're clipping it together. And I'm gonna have Ramel just speed up anything where I'm not talking so that this video isn't 3 hours long. All right, let's go to the machine. I'm using Gutermann Sew All thread and a 3mm stitch length. And here it kind of pivots a bit. There we go. You have plenty of clearance here. I think over here I could have taken a better pivot. So I'm gonna go over it again. Not too much though, I don't want to perforate the vinyl. All right. Now it's important that we trim our corners especially, and then you come in here and you do some little cuts so that it wants to turn properly. But I'm also going to trim some of that seam allowance away. And the reason I do that is because vinyl is a stiffer material and you got to reduce that seam allowance a bit for it to have a really nice clean look. Flip it to the wrong, so wrong sides are facing. I'm going to use a clip here to hold it in place, and then I pinch it with my fingers all the way around it. It's looking good. I'll use a few clips to hold it. We're gonna top stitch right away so this baby behaves for all time. Here we go, to the machine. You don't have to lock stitch here unless you want to, because we're gonna sew over that again. And there it is. Now, one thing some people find really helpful is to baste along that outer edge. So if you'd like to do that, just make sure it's about 1/8 of an inch from the edge. I'm gonna do it. And I'm turning my stitch length up to 4.5, 5. See how small that seam allowance is? And And you want that big seam allowance, or I mean, seam allowance, that big stitch length, that based stitch, because we don't want to perforate any edges. Vinyl is a little different than quilting cotton. We can't sew and sew and sew over it with a 3mm stitch length many times without tearing it. Yay. One pocket is done. Now you can come in and kind of clean up your edges if you like. I like to do that. Makes me feel a little bit more prepared. And I'm just sort of cleaning up any extra WRC that's poking out, rounding my corners. Good, looks good. Now we're gonna do the same thing for the remaining exterior pocket pieces. Remember, this is for the back. No magnet needed unless you wanna do something special there, as always. You can always do your own thing. Let's go back overhead and I will put these pieces right sides together. I cut this one really sloppily, and that's okay because I want to show you that it can be done. And we'll clean it up later. Wait, did I cut my, oh my God, I don't think my vinyl piece is good here. Let me check. Just a little bit sloppy here at the top. There. I like to sew it, I think, what did I do last time, Ramel? Did I sew with the vinyl up? I don't remember already. Let's take it to the machine. I gotta turn my stitch length back down to 3 because we just basted. Top edge only. Some people will say you only have to do that on the curve, but I get a better result if I just do it all the way across. Now I gotta trim down those corners and trim down the excess material. Now we're going to turn it. Take the time to push out all the edges. And if it doesn't look good to you, just go back in and trim away some of the seam allowance and a little bit more. Come in here with your fingers and really push it out. Aren't we lucky to have hands and fingers? Yeah. I just can't imagine trying to do things with 2 clubs or something. I don't know. All right, let's top stitch that. I'm still going to keep it at a 3mm stitch length. If you want to lengthen it, you absolutely can. It's your choice. You might have noticed I don't need a Teflon foot yet. All right, I'm going to baste the outer edge, turning it up to 4.5 or 5. I didn't stay as close as I wanted to there. Oh well. Turn back down your stitch length and let's clean up our edges. My water resistant piece was quite a bit bigger than my exterior vinyl piece. So I'm just cleaning up the edges. I have done it so many times in the past where I thought I was hitting both layers and I was only hitting the larger cut piece. Ugh. All right, there we are. Pockets are done. Clean up your space. Got my garbage can here. So let's check in with our pattern piece. I'm gonna lay my finished pieces out of my reach so I don't ruin those. All right, so you just made your pockets in step 2, and now we need to attach these in step 3. Now, if you're nervous, because this is a vinyl bag, we did film making the bag without these pockets as well. If you think that will better suit you, it's absolutely fine. But first, I'm gonna follow the pattern because I think you'll love it, and let's go overhead. So let's take one body piece. This is the exterior body panel, and I'm folding it in half to make that centering crease. Now, sometimes it ends up that this pocket is a little bit wider, and that's okay. All we need is to make sure that these centering creases are lined up, because anything over the edges can be trimmed away later. Doesn't really matter at this moment. We just need to make sure that we're sewing it looking at this side so the pocket is attached properly. I like to give you a little bit of fudge room there because it happens. It just happens. All right, so there's the front. Here's the back. Remember, the front is the one with the magnet. Bring my machine back down and let's show sewing these on. Are you ready, Rum? We're going to go to the machine. All right, I'm going to use a 4mm stitch length here. Oh, and then I forgot to flip it over. That's all right. Let me make sure that I got everything here. Yep, I did for the most part. Just gonna make those curves a little better. And over here. You might need to turn your stitch length down on the curve portion just so you really get it, you know, a nice curve. All right, let's sew the back portion, the back pocket on. Looks pretty good. We're going to clip all the curves, and then also I'd like you to trim your seam allowances down. Let's go overhead. Okay, we did steps 1, 2, and 3. And all of that is on the diagram in the pattern for you. Okay, let's turn the page. This is step 4, I believe. On the right side of the flap lining piece, place the remaining magnet. So the flap is this funky shape here. And I'm going to go overhead. Now, I think it would be a good idea for me to iron this out so it's nice and flat. I'm going to spray it first. You can spray it, it'll be okay. And where's my iron? I think I'll use my mini iron because with bag making, I like it to be a little bit more precise. I see my big iron on the floor. Hi. I'm just gonna wait for this to heat up. I have it all the way turned up. I always use my iron on high heat. Just like I cook on high too. Like everything as fast as you can go. And you're the opposite. You're like, let's just slow it down. That's why you're good for me. All right, let's go. See how this, yep. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? Now you notice I don't keep it in place long. I just kind of move it over, flatten it out. There's that. There, good. Now this will be the right side of my pattern piece, so I need to bring this in and mark my magnet placement here. There's my little tool. And then that hole will be in the center of my prongs. I have my 2 little markings there to make the slit pieces, slit holes. Gosh, with dark colors, I can hardly see what I'm doing. Let's see, there it is. There it is. Okay, there's one, there's the other. Whew. Now again, with the little scrap piece of foam or whatever you have, trim it down a little bit. There we go. All right, let's place this right sides together. You want this facing the outside. So this is now the right side. Just gonna move my iron and move these clips. Let me check in with my pattern piece. Yep. All right, so we're gonna sew all the way around the edge, but leave this top flat part open because we're gonna turn it right side out with that. Let's go to the machine. again with the clipping of the curves. And we'll trim down the seam allowance as well. Now do this gently. If you want to warm up your vinyl to get it to turn out more easily, you can. I don't find this one is difficult to do. It just takes a few minutes. Coaxing everything out. I don't try to ramrod it through because then I'll bust seams. So I'm coming in here with my fingers and just gently pushing out the seam allowance. And you know, we do have that tool. I'm going to use the larger balled end and run it along the corner there. Yeah, I see a difference. There we go. And then again up here, just run it along the seam and then press it with your fingers. Once you're happy with that, let's top stitch. Bring it over to the machine. I'm going to turn mine to a 4mm stitch length. Now for this part, this will show. So what you can do is a couple of things. In the pattern, I have you fold it and tuck it in. Now I realize that might be difficult for some of you with your machines. So I'm going to show you another way. We're just going to use some of our scrap vinyl and we're going to cut 3/4 of an inch strip. And it just has to be long enough to cover that top edge. Give me a sec. I gotta straighten this up a bit. 3/4, 3/4. My eye always catches when it's not a straight cut. All right, let's get our double-sided sticky tape. I want you to put some along this edge. You probably know what I'm going to do here, right? We're going to use this vinyl like binding because vinyl will not fray. So take your strip, fold it lengthwise in half, and give yourself a crease. And first, we want to go off the edge a little bit. See how this strip is longer than the top? It doesn't have to be this much longer, but a little longer. And you're going to place that like that. Now hold on, let's go over to the machine. Remember, I did not take this paper off yet. Now I'm going to take it off. I get asked probably 10 times a day if my needle gets stuck on the double-sided sticky tape, and no, it does not. Not ever. So, but that's why I purchase brands that I trust, because I can't answer for some obscure brand off Amazon or something. I know what works for me. All right, let's fold this over the top. It will now cover the stitching we just did, and that edge will look great. Let me get this paper off here. All right, let's take it overhead. To the machine. You know what I meant, Ron. I'm going to start back here, kind of like a leader, fabric leader. And let's go over here and trim it up. Now, if for whatever reason those edges bother you, just use a Sharpie and color them, or use your edge paint. But I really don't notice any edges here that, something that would be jarring and distract my eyes. I don't. So there's our flap. All right, I'm gonna move it out of my way. So we just did steps 4, 5, and 6. We're moving right along. Okay, oh, you know what I did the magnet. I was like, did I do the magnet? 7, step 7, fold the D-ring attachment piece in half and cut it. So I had you cut one of these, right? We're just gonna fold it like this, short edges meeting. Oops, let me move that out of the way. And we'll cut right down that crease. Now I'm gonna fold it so that it's longer like this, and see if I cut this. I'm going to trim a little off so that my D-rings will slide better. I will do that for you in the pattern. You don't have to worry about this. I was thinking we would use 1-inch hardware again, but we're using 3/4 inch. So we're just going to do this. And you can sew or rivet, and I am definitely going to rivet. Now, if this is too thick for you, make your D-ring attachments from the WRC or fabric canvas or quilting cotton, but reinforce it with SF101. Something that can stand some strength with use, okay? Now we need to grab our side panels. There they are. the two exterior. And again, this is measuring, I want the bottom of your D-ring to hit at 2 inches down from that top edge. Not the top, the bottom of your D-ring. So what I'm going to do is give myself a little marker so I know where I want it to hit. And that way, this will be right there and centered. I am going to rivet these on. If you don't have a table press, I do have an affiliate link so you can save some money and get yourself one. It's like a power tool. It will help you be more accurate and place these easily. Here's my rivet press. And getting my hole puncher tool. You might have a die hole puncher, and that is great. Do whatever works for you. Now I'm going to punch my hole in the center of that. I've already got a hole from my Japanese hole punch. I'm gonna put my rivet through here. Oh, that one's not long enough. If you're using vinyl, you will need extra long posts. Let's see if I have any here. I might have to use silver. I only have, no, those aren't long. I'm gonna use gold because that's what I have these extra long posts for. All right. And I'm putting it through, and then I'm gonna put the cap on the back. I'll do the other one overhead so you can really see, but I just want you to see this is a really easy way to get this attached without any breaking of needles or struggling with your machine. I just wanna do what's easiest for you. I am going to clean up some of my edging here. There. You know, I wish I had bronze rivets, but it's not terrible if you mix hardware colors, is it? It's not the end of the world. It's fine. All right, let me go overhead and show you this one. Centering. I'm going to take my post and put it through there, and then put it through my hole here, and then put the cap on. Now that's not permanent until you press it with the table press. All right, it's on. And it's never coming off. We'll be using more with that rivet press in a little later. So we've got step 7 done. Step 8, place the wider edge of the exterior panel with the short sides of your bottom panel. So this is our exterior bottom panel, and this is what we're doing as far as making the gusset portion. We're gonna sew them together like this, capiche? So right sides together, sew across. Let's go to the machine. Now on this portion, we're gonna take a little bit bigger seam allowance, and we're gonna do 2 passes. So see that? See that line? Now I'm gonna sew again just inside it, not on top, because I don't want to tear the vinyl. All right, let's grab the other, well, let's top stitch this first. Fold it back. The seam allowance will be this way, and I'm gonna top stitch that down. See how good that looks then? All right, let's grab the other piece. The other bottom edge, they will match. If you try to do this, they will not match. Oop. There we go. Again, just inside. Fold it to the right side. Seam allowance is going this way. I'm catching it. And there we are. All right, step 9. We are gonna sew this gusset on to the exteriors. I still have that centering crease here. I have a centering crease here now. The reason we do this at this point is because I don't know how your seam allowances are compared to mine. And that's no judgment. We're all different. We all have different feet on our sewing machine and all of that. So don't be harsh on yourself, because I'm not harsh on you. So there. This is what I want you to do. Match up your centering creases and then the tops. Now we're going to work down one side. We're going to work in from the center on this. And see this part? I know some of you will want to cuss at me. You don't need to. Look, I want you to pinch these corners and just do it this way, okay? It's going to work out. It's going to be just fine. We're going to pinch this. Sit it down and clip. So now it fits, all right? If your gusset is not matching your main body, think about your seam allowances. Are these correct? Think about, you can always let it overhang on the top edge, and you can trim the excess at the very end after you get the gussets on both. The gusset and the other main panel on, you can trim it after that. You could always take this out and redo your seam allowances. Just think how you can save this if it's not matching up perfectly. You're your harshest critic. I can't do my words today. You're your harshest critic. And so I just want you to get it as good as you can with where you're at today. Think about your rivets. Are they pretty even? If one is way down here and one is up here, then you know you got to redo this portion. Just take your time. You know, we get better at things the more we do them, hopefully. Sometimes for me, that's not the case. Sometimes I get worse. Let's go to the machine. I want you at a 3 millimeter stitch length. It's not quilting cotton, so we don't go down to a 2 on this. See this? I'm just gonna press it, press it, press it, press it, and around that curve. Nice and smooth, never stopping. Pressing, 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 pressing. Yep, there we go. Backstitch a little, and there it is. All right, now you'll come in and you're gonna trim away any excess seam allowance. It's pretty small for vinyl bags, that seam allowance, after being trimmed. And the reason is because it's stiffer than quilting cotton. So you got to get it out of your way. And then come in with your scissors and notch these curves. Check your seams. Did you get everything? I like to run my finger, see if I have any holes. All right, it looks pretty good. Now we will add the other side. So the same thing. Gonna fold it in half and make a centering crease. The crease from your gusset, match the center first. I think I'm seeing it. If not, I might have to reposition this a little bit. I'm gonna do the top. I'm gonna do a clip in the top, a clip in this top. One clip down this side, one clip down this side. Working in from that center bottom. And then we're back to the corner. Pinch, 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 pinch. Lay it down. If you look at on the rack bags, they do this. All right, and then add more clips as you see fit, if it helps you. And then we're gonna sew this baby down. Okay, here we go. This side is always harder than the first side, so just go slowly, whatever you need to do, make it work. See that? I'm not going to panic. It's going to be fine. I'm coming up to this corner. If you want to whack this with your mallet, please do. Push this out of my way. I fully support making vinyl bags is considered a workout. And there we are. I'm just going to make sure everything is attached. I will clip into those curves on the side that I haven't yet and trim down the seam allowance. Just makes it, sure, you can go overhead. I'm just trimming that down. The less bulk you have down here in the seams, the better. All right, see all that? Whew. Let's clean up our space so we don't feel panicky and discombobulated, right? There we go. So let me check with my pattern. We've got that. Now we're going to do step 10, which is the same exact thing to build the lining bag. Let's go overhead. Clean up your space. And that was step 10 that we just finished. Now we have our lining bag. Step 11, we have to turn the exterior bag right sides out because we're going to drop in this lining. Don't panic. It's going to be fine. We're only binding the top edge, and we're actually not doing a binding. We're going to do a facing because I like new things. If you warm up your vinyl, it is easier to manipulate. But I'm just gonna try to do it the hard way because that's how I am. Anyone else here refuse to do it the easy way because it takes more time? Ramel, don't judge me. Ramel, he used to get so mad at me because I would just start painting rooms. I wouldn't tape. I wouldn't put a drop cloth down. I'm like, I'm not going to make a mess. It's going to be fine. And then he finds 800 little pin dots of paint on the wood floor. Yeah. True life story. Multiple times. I am who I am. Okay, here we go. I'm getting all these curves out. Awesome. Okay, now, if you wanted to, if you are a patient person, you can take your exterior bag and place clips along every seam, up the side, on the bottom, yada yada, and let it sit for an hour or two while you sip your cappuccino. And that will help your seams pop out. But you don't have to. I'm not going to right now because I'm out of time. All right, let's go overhead and we are going to put the lining bag inside the exterior. First step, you're going to match those side seams. You can always just push your D-ring down so it's out of your way. And now, work your way around the bag and place a few clips. We'll just baste this top edge. But because this is a smaller size bag, we're gonna need to lift the sewing machine so it's easier. Now, I didn't do that on my first two samples, so you don't necessarily have to. But it is a technique that can help you when you're making a small bag and you're trying to go around in a circle and you don't have a cylinder arm. So here's my riser. It's just solid wood and it holds my heavy machine. I'm gonna move this out of the way for a second. Bring this in here. See, sewing is a workout. It's like lifting weights. And that will allow me to have my bag move a little bit more easily. I'm gonna start on the side because if I mess everything up, I don't want it to be in the front. All right, I gotta kind of manhandle this. You're keeping this 1/4 inch from that raw edge there. As best you can. You're gonna see mine's not gonna be perfect. But this will get covered up with our facing, so it's all good. sewn on. It's in there, okay? Couple of different things you can do if you're getting worn out. You could always use pinking shears and pink this top edge. You can do fray check and then color it with a Sharpie. You can do a Wright's prepackaged binding if that's easier for you. But I think I'm gonna treat the edges with vinyl. So I've got a little bit left here, and the reason I didn't cut this in the beginning is because there are so many ways to treat this edge. So if you're sick of it by now, just do it with fray check and color it and trim it down so it's nice and neat, okay? It's all right. I'm gonna take you overhead and show you with my scrap pieces that are left how I'm gonna cut my facing. First, I need a strong, straight, clean edge here. So I'm cleaning up this edge. And then I'm gonna do a 1-inch strip. Now, I haven't given you a length, and that's on purpose because I want you to cut a couple of strips here. Give yourself some room. This thing is really curling up on me. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so I've got 2 strips here. Let me do one more. Just in case. So first I've got to give myself a straight edge. There we are. And now I'll measure from that clean straight edge 1 inch over. All right. So you know this length, right? I know, I'm just measuring. I'm measuring on my cutting mat. So this is about 11 across, about. And that includes some of this gusset in the measurement. So as long as I have a strip that's, let's say, 23 inches, I think I'll be okay. So I'm gonna sew these 2 strips together, right sides together. Let's go to the machine. Now I'm gonna fold that seam to one side. Don't have to backstitch. If your stitches will hold, you don't have to. All right, let's go back over here to the workspace. I am gonna trim my threads. I don't want anything getting in my way, annoying me, that kind of thing. Remember what we did last time? We've done this in some other patterns before too. We're gonna do a strip of double-sided sticky tape, and I'm gonna go 23 inches. This strip in total, mine is 24 inches. All right, we've got our tape on both long edges now. This will help us. The seam will be the hardest part, so we may just rivet that portion, that's okay. I'm gonna come through here and finger press this in half, just for a guide. You can imagine we're gonna put this over that top raw edge, and everything will be enclosed. Okay, let's peel off one side. Remember, you always want to start and stop on a side portion. You just want it to hit, the top edges will hit in the middle of your strip. Can you see what I'm doing? Oh yeah, plenty of room here. I'm gonna make these so they're not overlapping, so I'm just gonna trim it right there. And take that piece out. And now unpeel. We're gonna sew it all at one time. I mean, you're seeing Natalie go full rogue here. Is that weird? But you know, when you test new techniques and do new I guess it's a new technique, you find that there's more than one way to do something. Just got to give yourself permission. Every so often, you'll have to adjust the bag. You could absolutely whack this down with your mallet before sewing if it helps. And don't try to go too fast here. Trim all your threads. And there's our bag. It's ready for the strap. That's all we have to do left is the strap. Now remember, if you want the easier version, your magnet is going to be on the main panel of the bag. It's because if you're doing the easier version, you don't have your slip-in pockets. But your magnet will still be here, just on the main panel, okay? All right, we are on step 13. We're gonna place the flap. So we need to be working with the back side of the bag. That's, if you put the pockets on, that's the side without a magnet. So this is the back side of the bag. You're gonna take your ruler and mark 2 inches down. So it's almost at the top of the pocket, a little bit above it, and you want this centered. So take a hot minute and make sure that these spaces from here to here and here to here are the same. Or is the same. That's where we want it. And what I recommend you do, unless you have a really heavy duty machine, is rivet this on. So let me come over here. I'm going to use my rivet tool. So this right here is about, it's 7.5 inches right here. Nearly, like within 1/8 of an inch. So I'll just center it. All right, you're going to take this end, which is 7.5 inches across, and mark the center. That's at 3 3/4 inch. And we're going to put a rivet right there. Give me 1 second. I'm going to place it now, at least the cap. Now, depending on the size of your rivet, you have to be up far enough so it's not going off your edge. Let me show you. I have big rivets. These are 12 millimeter head. So what I mean is I didn't want my rivet hole down here because then my rivet would have been off the edge of my flap, okay? So there's the center. Now we're gonna go 2 inches over and make a mark. 2 inches over and make a mark. And we're gonna put our holes in the same place. So that they're all even. Oh, I might have to move that one up a bit. That's the thing I love about a 12 millimeter cap though, is you can cover mistakes. Give me 1 second. Let me see how this looks. Yeah, it needs to be moved up just a smidge. There's 1, 2, and 3. So that looks pretty good. Now, if you wanted to add more, you could come out here to the side, but I think this will be enough. Now remember on our bag, we want this to be centered. Pay attention to the side seam and where it hits. Here. You want these even. And then I also should have done a little mark for 2. Oops, that one's 2.5. Let's go 1.5 inches down. So I'm changing that. 1.5 inches down. There's my mark. So now I've got to do this portion. Is that the center? I'm on that centering crease. All right, I've got the center there. I'm just gonna make sure, oop, I'm putting it on this way. We want the flap to go over the top. All right, so I've got that middle one placed. Okay, so see how my magnet found its mate? Perfect. So I only had to punch that middle one to find proper placement. Now I can simply press these down. And I have markings for where these holes need to be. All right. I'm going to unmagnetize that because I need to put on my caps. I like doing it at this point in the game because I don't mind looking at rivets on the lining of the bag, for one thing. I don't think it's ugly or anything. And I want to make sure that my flap placement is exactly correct. And it just doesn't work out when I try to do this earlier in the game. All right, so now I just have to set those. So you know what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna get my table press again. Let's go back overhead. And I'm gonna set these. Just make sure that you're in the cradle here. You'll have to scooch your bag out of the way, but it's not difficult. Just get it. You can always roll this up, bring it through. You just don't want to set these crooked, so make sure your rivet is in that cradle. Try to move it. If it's not moving, you're in the cradle. There's that one. And there's that one set. And now my flap is on. All right. The hardest part is now done. Okay, let's do our strap and we'll be out of here. Hello, I'm gonna do the strap now, and there's a little bit easier of a method thanks to Michelle. She helped me out with this one. So I'm just gonna take you overhead and let's cut a 3-inch tall rectangle by about 30 inches long. Okay, so there's one strip. Then we're gonna fold this in half and cut our strap piece. So use that folded edge and that bottom raw edge and do this as best you can. I honestly rough cut it and get the straight bits as good as possible, like there. And then what I'm gonna do, time to change my blade, is I'm gonna grab a clip. I'm gonna go like this, hold this in place. I'm gonna draw around this and then cut it with my hand scissors. Now, you can do whatever method works for you best, but this is what works for me. It doesn't even have to make a pen mark, honestly. I just need that indentation on where I'm cutting, and I need these layers to stay together. So it's easier for me to manipulate without the template right there, and then I can see the grooves. And it doesn't have to be absolute perfection. Don't forget, like it can, if you cut into it a little too far, well, your strap will just be slightly different than the rest of us. It's okay. Like that. I need to clean that curve up. I'm going to round this tip here. We just want both of those ends to be the same because they're going to have holes in them. And then I did not get this even at all. So see how I goofed that up a little bit? That's okay. I'm just going to come in here and make it a little less angled so it matches the other side. It's just little tiny adjustments. It's looking good enough for me. So now I'll open it, and there we are. And then this part, I like to use my screw punch like I've been doing in the video. If you can't get that, you can get, this one won't work. There are little, what are they called? Flare pens that have a longer tip where you can just make a dot and then use your hole puncher tool if you want, use the Japanese screw punch tool if you want, whatever works for you is totally fine. So on that note, I am going to mark my dots on each end, and then I'll show you how we're sewing this together. I'm gonna punch these. It's best if you don't do the punching directly on your cutting mat because it will cut your cutting mat. But I'm doing it, as you know, I'm a rebel without a cause, right? And I just do what I want. Well, it's easier to see on camera if I do it here. That's why. Okay, so I've got my holes punched. Now that strip that we cut, we're gonna lay it on top. Now I cut it way long. That's okay. I just didn't want you to run out because that's the worst. So what I'm gonna do is bring it up here to this top straight edge because that way I don't have to cut that part. Anything that can reduce my cutting, I'm here for it. Okay, I'm gonna move this out of the way. And then depending on how you want to do this, I like to start out with my scissors. If it's going really easily, then I'll just continue. You could do the straight edges with your rotary. Well, this is just one straight edge. It seems it's fine, so I'm just going to keep going. Oh my gosh. I should have sewn this first. That's okay. Here, you know what, you guys? This happens to me. I have 8,000 things on my mind. Let's sew it first and then trim. Ooh, hello, good morning. Let's go to the machine. I'm gonna turn it to a 3.5 stitch length. I know you all don't mind when I have these moments because you're all so sweet. Okay, and I'm curving it here, not pulling. Remember, don't pull. Now here I'm getting down towards these tiny, smaller curves, but I don't really want to reduce my stitch length, so I'm going to do a lot of pivoting and just call it good. This edge is a little bit uneven, but I can clean that up at the end. There, we're back to the beginning. Don't backstitch a ton because you don't want it. I love that sound. The airplane going overhead. I don't know if you all can hear it, but there's an airplane radial engine obviously going overhead. Anywho, what was I saying? It's gone. I don't remember. It's out of here. You know what I should start saying? My thought went airborne. That sounds more hardcore, right? Yeah. Okay, so now if you want to go overhead, Rom, you can see me. I'm just cutting the excess from the rectangle away. And this way, this is so genius of Michelle to share this with me because this ensures that you're not sitting here for 100 years cutting out your strap. So thank you, Michelle Graham, for this little time saver tip. All right, it looks like I have just a smidge here to clean up. I'll do that by hand. You could also use your acrylic ruler and rotary cutter. All right, and there's our strap. Isn't that great? Now, if you want to, edge coat this, or you could use the Sharpie. Do whatever you like there. It doesn't bother me enough for me to invest the time to edge coat it. That's just personal preference. This is how I am. But if I were gonna sell this bag, then I would probably do an edge coat. All right? So then you'll just carry on with adding your lobster swivels and your little rivets. Match up those holes right there and then set your rivets. We don't do an adjustable buckle on this strap. It's not long enough for that. It's just meant to be an over-the-shoulder carry, and it's also long enough if you want to put it on your forearm and carry your bag like that. So very quick and awesome little tip there on the strap. So there you are. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so I have my tabletop cam press from Cam. I was going to say from. All right, I have one lobster swivel pulled onto here. Let's go overhead. Then we're going to match the holes that we punched. Let's see here. Here it is. So what might be easiest is if you push one rivet through. Oh, I didn't get that hole all the way through. Sometimes that happens. Okay, there's that rivet. I'm gonna fold this back. What's going on with me? Is my strength just not adequate today? Because I didn't punch this one deep enough either. I gotta increase my weights, Ramel. My dumbbells. There's that. I'm gonna put on the cap. And then I'm gonna take it through here. And it's set. That is going nowhere. Look at that. All right, let's do the same thing over here. It looks like I didn't make these. I must have been in a gentle state of mind. Here we are. Oops. I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna grab a swivel before I forget. Put that on. Don't test me, Ramel. I'm just kidding. Always test me. Always question me, please. I'm gonna do the cap. There's that. Now I'm gonna put it in the cradle. I'm making sure it's not moving. And there we are. And the strap is ready to hook onto the D-rings of the bag that are already sewn on. Now you may notice I'm using gold rivets and lobster swivels here. This vinyl, I think you could get away with all sorts of colors of hardware. So use whatever you've got and just get her done, right? Post your picture in our makers group so you can be eligible to win the $100. I want to give that away to y'all. All right, let's keep going. Now we've got our bag and we get to put on the strap like so. It must be raining. And there it is. It's a nice wide strap, so it's very comfortable. If you wanted to make it skinnier, you can. Now, if you're in my SVC club, you got a free acrylic template, which was a lot of money. But you got it for free. Everyone else can purchase one if you want one, if you want that template. Look at that! I did it. Barely, but I did it. So there you are. Feel free to modify however you like. It's never a problem. And also, I just want to remind you all that you can sell your handmade bags at craft shows without permission. If you made it, you can sell anything, no matter what pattern you're using. But any of mine are always okay to do that. I want you to make money from your work. I want you to do that. There she is. Now I just need to stuff it with some bubble, let it sit for a day or two, and then I can use it. I hope you had fun. Thank you so much for sewing with me. Please don't forget to subscribe and send this to a friend. Maybe they want to get into bag making. You don't have to make it with vinyl. You could always make this from canvas fabric, and it will be easier. You know, one thing about sewing that I love so much is there's always more to learn. There's always a way to push yourself further. And for me, it's using these materials that I really find fun and enjoyable and modern. It's just the look I like. So there you are. All right, Ram, your turn. Yeah, we'll do the pillowcase instead. All right. I'll see you soon. Peace, love, sewing.